Well, hopefully Irvin's looking for a second baseman. I would hope that's what he's spending his time on right now. But Irvin and I stay in touch all the time. In fact, I spoke to Irvin yesterday, and he's always been quick just to call and to encourage. And when he was our vice president for so many years, he never said, Mitch, this is something that I think you should do. He would just call and say, I just want to touch base. What are you thinking? What do you see? Is there anything I can do to help? And I have called on him from time to time, to help me. Whether it's, I want to run something past you, can you meet with the player? Can you make a phone call for me? And even though, he's working for the Dodgers now, that has not changed. And I kid him all the time, about the baseball thing, because I'm a big baseball fan too. So I watch American League primarily, but I do watch the Dodgers, and I'm a fan of the Dodgers. So we do have this thing going back and forth. And I did ask him, yesterday about the second base position.
Has that left the organization in an uncomfortable position when he's been so vocal about his take on what the team's made in terms of personnel moves and things like that?
Yeah, I think a little bit, yeah. And, Irvin is Irvin. He's free to, it comes from the heart. It's not like, there's some agenda there that he's trying to accomplish something. He's not in the office every day. He's probably not that familiar with the guidelines and the CBA and the rules and how hard it is to get a deal done and what's going on in the locker room. But he's a fan at heart. And this organization has meant the world to him, and he's meant the world to the organization. So I will never say, Irvin, you got to stop doing this or that. When he does say something nice, I will call him up and say, I appreciate you saying something nice. So I'm trying a little positive reinforcement versus reprimand.
Have you given him any thoughts on the second baseman at all?
He laughed.
You have no names?
It was I think I did a good job changing the subject when I said that. So he chuckled.
Mitch, all great franchises have a dip here and there. You mentioned your message to the fans about 1 year. Do you feel like this is a pivotal, almost turning point, not just because of where you are, but so much of the success was under the late Dr. Buss, and there is change at the top?
I think that may lead to some of the, panic that you may feel, or the anxiety that you may feel by, the fans and the radio and print. But those mediums are so much more prevalent now than they were, even 10, 15 years ago. Just in short, what this team went through this year is really no different than what we went through, the year after we traded Shaquille. It was the exact same thing. Now, I think because Dr. Buss, was alive, and there was a different level of trust because he's been doing this for 25 years. I think people may have been more patient, but I remember, radio and TV and me and print and fans just going crazy that year.
And Kobe?
And Kobe. Just going absolutely crazy. And I think it's natural, when you lose an owner like Dr. Buss, for people to say, well, what's going on? But you have to trust, the organization, and everybody's on the same page. We have a plan, and I can't guarantee that you can execute a plan in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, but we're well positioned, and the organization, has chosen, to follow Dr. Buss's legacy, which is to win championships.
Mitch, is the goal in the future, whether that's this upcoming summer, next summer, to sign another big name that Kobe can almost pass that torch to and can be the face of the Lakers franchise?
Well, we plan to be in the free agent market and pursue, free agents of impact. If the player that has the big name can play, and can impact whether we win games or not, and that we think our fans would appreciate watching play, then yes, we will. And that's how a lot of times it's one and the same. You know, a big player, you would think, well, he can do those things, but not always.
Why didn't the Lakers go under the last year test? Why wasn't it a priority to make moves to go under, or was it, and it just didn't happen?
Well, the organization is not motivated by saving X amount of dollars. I mean, there's a strategic reason why you might want to do that, because at some point you have to get underneath or else you're exposed to the repeater tax. But the repeater tax, I don't think going forward, could be a big issue for us for the next year or two. We were more concerned, with making a basketball deal. Now, as we talked about earlier, if you can make a basketball deal or 2 basketball deals, which means you're getting back a player you like or you're getting back a pick, and go below the repeater, go below the tax threshold, that's something that we would have liked to have done. And quite frankly, we did have an opportunity to go below the tax threshold, but they were not basketball. There were no basketball components. And that's unacceptable with this organization. I think the expression would be a salary dump. That's not what this organization will do. If we could have gotten picks or players that we felt good about going forward, then we would have done that. But we did have opportunities to go below the threshold, and we wouldn't do it.
Based on what you've seen from Steve Nash this season, how do you think his future fits with the team next season?
With which team?
The Lakers.
I can't comment. He's a member of the Golden State Warriors.
Steve Nash.
Oh, I thought you said Steve Blake. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, go ahead. Go again.
Based on what you've seen from Steve Nash this season, what do you think his future looks like with the Lakers?
He's obviously it's gonna be a challenge. At the appropriate time, we'll sit down and talk about it. But it's really his decision. He's under contract to play basketball next year, and there's a lot of moving pieces in something like this, and for us to sit down and try to influence one way or the other, it's not ethical, and it's really his decision. So ever since he broke his leg, it's been one thing after another, and this year has been a really, really tough year for him. But he's in the gym every day. He's flying back and forth to his trainers. He looks great. He's trying. He's working hard. You can't hold anything against a guy that works that hard and wants it that badly. So we'll see as the weeks go on, if he can get back and play, and then we'll see what the summer brings.
Back to Pal, do you envision talking with his representatives about an extension before July, or is that something that you're going to wait until?
Do I envision it?
Yeah, playing it.
It's possible. It's possible. I would categorize it as unlikely, but it's possible. I mean, we worked really hard to create flexibility, and until June 30th, we're not going to know who's a free agent and who's not a free agent. So I really don't know how you do that.
And for the rest of the roster, besides Kobe and Nash and Soccer, everyone else is going to be a free agent.
Well, Nick Young has a
And Nick
second
Young
deal.
has the player option. How do you evaluate?
Did you say
those-
Kendall Marshall?
And Kendall Marshall.
Uh-huh.
How do you evaluate those guys as far as what you're looking for, whether they be?
We're going to watch him play. Yeah, I think Nick practiced a little bit today. Is that right, John?
Just a little bit.
A little bit. So he'll get back on the court at some point. Kendall's playing. We know what Kobe is. Sakre, he'll play. When he gets in the game, whether it's, in front of Kaman or behind Kaman, I don't know, but he'll play. Nick Young, I don't know what he's going to do. He's having a great year. You might guess that he's going to opt out, but we don't know.
So will you be watching more college basketball than ever before, or is it really not different?
I'll be concentrating a little bit more at a certain level of the draft than I have in the past. And we haven't had a pick in a while. So we just made sure that we knew as many players as we could. It's always easier to concentrate on guys who you think are going to be in the first round. This year, clearly our pick's going to be a good pick. So those players I'll be concentrating on more than ever.
Back to Steve Nash. Is the team exploring the stretch provision over the offseason?
There's nothing to explore. What do you mean? We know what the rule is.
I mean, is that on the table for you guys, or is it entirely up to Steve whether or not he wants to play next week?
We'll have to see where we are this summer. I mean, a lot of it's going to be based on what Steve says and what we see. I mean, if he's out there playing at a high level and he's working during the summer at a high level, that'll be a factor in what we do. But the stretch provision, without going into great detail, is not something that you can use on every player. There are guidelines and rules as to how many times you can use it, and the aggregate amount that you can use it for each year. So it's not as simple as you might think.
Sounds like,
Anything else?
it sounds like this process is not as simple as it used to be by a mile, right?
It's different, yeah. But it's not like I woke up and, all of a sudden the rules are different from 30 years ago. It's come about slowly. In every new collective bargaining agreement, there's tweaks and changes. The last agreement was pretty dramatic. Yeah, we still have a cap, we still have a tax threshold, but a lot of the other things, that make it, a little bit more manageable, which have changed, and it's a bigger challenge now than it ever was.
Mitch, when you look at the decision whether to spend your dollars this summer or wait till next summer, what more than anything are you looking at in making that call?
Well, the one thing you don't want to do is make a bad decision with your money. We do have a lot of money, and what we don't want to do is make commitments to players for long periods of time that may just put your team in the middle of the pack. So you've used up your flexibility, and at the end of the year, you're 41-41, or you get 46 wins or 43. You know what I mean? Then you're in the middle of the pack. You're not, giving the people in Los Angeles, what they expect. We're not bringing it to the table what we expect to bring to the table. So that's what you don't want to do. You want to use your money wisely and get players that can help you win at a high level.